Hello everyone, my name is Natasha and I'll be doing a presentation on Louise Bourgeois. She was a female sculptor slash artist. She did all sorts of artwork, but she was mainly known for her sculpting. She lived from 1911 to 2010. So she was born in Paris, France. She had siblings, an older sister and a younger brother, making her the middle child. Her parents, Louis Bourgeois and Josephine Ferrox, owned a workshop for restorations of tapestries, and Louise would actually help fill in the designs when they became worn. She would do mostly the lower parts were damaged, so people believe that this actually influenced her career as well because a lot of her later works she would sculpt damaged feet or worn feet. So by the time she was a teenager, she actually had something that had a very negative impact on her. Her father had an affair with the nanny, and it was a secret. Even though everyone knew, everyone kind of kept quiet about it. Even her mother knew. And this was really damaging for Louise because she loved both her parents and she had to stuff this in and pretend like nothing was happening. And this actually was a huge piece of her artwork in the future as well. So she loved her father deeply, but learned to despise him as well and have resentments. She studied mathematics a little bit in college, but shortly after this, her mother died, and that's when she started becoming interested in art because it allowed her to express herself and the emotions she was feeling. She was definitely used art for self-expression. Her father didn't really agree with it, but she decided to do it anyways, regardless of what he said. So she did have a family. In 1938, she met Robert Goldwater, who she married and had 3 kids with. She actually they adopted at first because she couldn't get pregnant, and then shortly after the adoption, she got pregnant and had 2 more boys. So in the 1940s, they decided to up and move to New York to pursue her career as an artist. So she actually blossomed maybe in like the 1950s because she devoted herself more to her art and joined the American Abstract Artists Group. Her works blossomed a lot after she switched from wooden sculptures to marble, plaster, and bronze. So later in her career, the 1970s, she began teaching and she held gatherings called Sundays, Bloody Sundays, for young artists that were aspiring to make something of themselves in the art field. And she died in 2010 of heart failure. So, so hopefully I'm saying this right. Femi Maison is one of her series of paintings, and pretty much what she meant by this was she captured the domestication and servitude that she felt that women were a slave to when they became housewives. So this is kind of how she saw it, and this is probably one of my favorite pieces by her. I just love what it represents, and not this wasn't usually the ideal dream because a lot of women actually they really wanted to become housewives, and so it was kind of unique that she felt this way about it because a lot of women that's all they wanted, and to her it was like she was like an indentured servant, you know. So this one is called The Destruction of the Father. It was one of her most famous sculptures because of the deep psychological message. She used wood, latex, fabric, and plaster, and it's a bed pretty much made from flesh, and it's all based inside of a womb. and all the little blobs that you see are supposed to be the children. And this was a metaphor for the hurt that she felt her father brought upon the family when he started the affair. It's kind of cannibalistic. The children tore apart the father and began to eat him in this one. So this one's called Cells. It's Eyes and Mirrors. She creates an abstract idea of the frustration and suffering that one typically endures in their lifetime. She used materials such as old doors, windows, and wire meshing. The different mirrors create reflections of different perspectives, and there's a large set of eyes that's trapped in the center staring at you while you're staring back at it. So this one is probably her most famous piece of work, and it's a huge sculpture made of bronze, stainless steel, and marble. It's one of the largest, actually, sculptures standing in the world. It's 30 feet high and 33 feet wide. The spider is actually pregnant and contains 26 marble eggs on its abdomen. She has outright said that this sculpture is representative of her own mother and how she felt about her. This one's Mason's Fragiles Empty Houses. It's actually a collaboration that her and other artists did. Hers are the steel legs with the tray on they're metal frames topped with metal trays. For her, it depicted an empty house like what she had growing up. So this is just kind of some of her printmaking. Although she was known for her sculpting, she did a lot of printmaking later in her life. They consisted of techniques such as aquatint, digital, dry point, engraving, etching, lithography, photogravure, relief, and screen print. This is a collaboration that her and Tracy Emin did, 16 drawings and paintings that illustrated human sexuality, drive, and emotions. It's probably one of the most brass and unusual, but also beautiful pieces of work because of the unfiltered methods and odd depictions of certain sex organs in collaboration with other objects. So, pretty interesting. Here's some of her other works that I found kind of interesting. She did a lot of like monuments and sculptures that are actually used in public parks and public buildings. I felt like she used a lot of mass in her sculptures and space, definitely with the giant spider, shapes, and color and texture. A lot of her stuff was pretty textured, as you can see. A lot of it looked pretty rough and jagged, but some of it also looked pretty smooth. And let's see, you can see some symmetry in this one. It's typical that spiders in real life too, if you cut them in half, they're pretty symmetrical. So, in this one, I saw definitely a smooth texture, and the color definitely creates a very woomy vibe with the red and the orange, kind of angry as well. So art is restoration. The idea is to repair the damages that are inflicted in life, to make something that is fragmented, which is what fear and anxiety do to a person, into something whole. So she definitely used art for self-expression. Her trials and tribulations were her main inspiration, and art kind of allowed her to express those kinds of things. She felt it was important to be honest and open with yourself and to allow yourself to just kind of feel all kinds of emotions, whether they be negative or positive. I also thought art for persuasion was one that could have been something she used, because she never really affiliated herself with any artistic or political movements, but her art was very powerful and moved a lot of people in the direction of feminism. So it could make you think kind of about the way women have been or maybe still are treated or viewed in society. A lot of critics often claimed that her work showed feminism, as I said. She didn't really agree or disagree with it, or identify herself as being a part of the feminist movement, but I feel like she definitely was an inspiration for it. A lot of people also felt that her work was very negative, and I can see where maybe someone would feel that way, but as she says, um, she would disagree by saying that she transforms hate into love. And if you kind of understand the reasoning for her work, you could definitely see that. So, so I kind of remade this picture because this is what stood out, and this is the original reason why I actually chose her. I thought she was very bold and brave in a lot of her artwork, and she was just so emotional, and she wasn't afraid to be who she really was and feel how she felt. And I feel like that's definitely very important in life. So, so that's it. Thank you for listening.